Seals are neither fully creatures of land or of the sea. Instead, they straddle the two, and they belong to this kind of in-between world, I suppose, in that they are both creatures of land and creatures of the sea. And such liminal entities, or kind of marginal bodies, very, very often do attract all kinds of beliefs and associated narratives in popular tradition, and seals are a really good example of that. It's the fact that they are neither one thing or the other. So we're dealing with something which is a near universal in terms of human culture and human storytelling.
Apart from our love of wildlife, it's our business, and it's probably the future. A lot of people, you know, who have given up the fishing have turning to the type of thing we're doing, and I think it's going to become more and more in the future. But you have to protect those habitats and ecosystems. You're not going to have that in the future.
We have to appreciate the seals a lot more. They're there, and we can create employment from it, from jobs from it. Seal watching is a realistic job creating industry, and it should be nurtured, and we should be putting a lot more resources into it.
We as consumers can change things. We must learn more about the damage first of all we're doing, the benefits that it'll bring, and we have to be willing enough to go that little bit extra mile, and it's up to every individual. You're not going to get laws and regulations and things saying that you have to do that, because it just won't happen. We have to take responsibility ourselves, do it ourselves, otherwise things are not going to change.
Not about managing ecosystems, we're about managing human impacts on ecosystems.
The seals are another attraction en route to Garnish Island, and in fact for some people the seals are a primary attraction. That's just the one thing, I suppose, and the fact they don't do any harm to anybody, I think they're very good in the area.
If we could only get people as interested in the seals as they're interested in the dolphins and the whales, then we might get someplace.
We're good in law now, but we aren't so good on protection.
Seals are, in a way, there's a love-hate relationship there, you know, for all sorts of reasons. You know, there are people who would, you know, see a photograph of a seal and or see a seal pup maybe on a wildlife tour or something, and virtually fall in love with it and want to do everything to protect that. There are other people obviously who come into conflict with them, and they're wild animals, just like, you know, foxes or deer or all sorts of other animals that live around human beings. So I think in terms of opportunities for the future arising out of seals, I would say yes, but I think they have to be understood as well as being another wild animal. Certainly as a scientist, that's where I see my role. You know, is to concentrate on the facts and on the evidence and try and help guide the management and the conservation forward based on what's known, and where there are things that aren't known, then that's obviously where you put some resources to try and understand better.
I just seen this one seal in particular, one of me trips, following me around the whole trip and watching me pulling the cod end strings as the net came into the boat. And he was watching me every shot. I'd pull the strings, I'd grab the strings and pull them. And the last day of the trip, on my last shot, we were lifting the cod end over the side of the boat, and with that the seal had pulled on the two cod end strings and opened the whole catch on top of himself in the water. And all I could do was just look and say, I'm going to have to tie a different knot in that. So I decided, it was better to tie a different knot in it, that the seals were starting to get very clever. He watched me every shot. I made about 12 shots in that trip, and he watched me every time to the last shot, and he pulled them strings, and that was my whole catch gone. And all I could do was laugh, and the crew were all laughing as well, because we couldn't believe what we just witnessed. It was very funny.
There are seals all around our coast, and they like the sun, they'll bask in the sun. You'll see them on the rocks off here. You'll see them on the end of Dollymount Beach sometimes now. There's quite a colony of them there. So when you come across a seal, even a pup, it's not necessarily in trouble. It could be just kind of lying in the sun enjoying itself. It could be there waiting for its mother to come and suckle it. So the thing to do is not to rush in and try and help the seal. It's to stand back and observe. And if you observe over a while, I mean, a seal could be there for a number of hours. So if you were out for a walk and you saw a seal, you thought it was in trouble, look at it, wait, go off, have your walk, come back. If the seal is still there and you think it's in trouble, don't go near it, call the authorities. That's the best thing to do, because as I said before, they are a wild animal and there is an appropriate way to approach them and to handle them, and it's only for the experts to do that.
Sports shooters who were shooting grey seal, the impetus to think twice and think about the bigger picture. And like many people, those hunters, and that's happened in other countries as well, have turned from helping to shoot game or big game in the case of Africa and gone over to shooting it with a camera rather than with a rifle. We've managed to keep them safe for 100 years now. They've rebuilt their populations, but if they're going to see it into any great distance in the future, climate change is the big question that we all have to tackle as a group. Most people's experience of the sea is the very edge and the very thin, shallow parts of the sea. And the sea is enormous and it's deep and it's much bigger than the land, and in places like Ireland our sea responsibility is a multiple of our land area. And it's important for people to realise that you may not necessarily get close to these things, but they're just as important as part of the ecology. And you will see seals bobbing their heads, staring at you through the seaweed. Take your time, stay quiet and get close as you can. You're not necessarily going to interfere with their day, but they might give you the inspiration to see that there's more out there than you noticed before.